The first time Commander Elias Varn stepped onto the desolate moon of Clythar 7, he felt the weight of eternity pressing down upon him. The air wasn't breathable. The ground cracked and blackened, and the sky bled with streaks of violet lightning, remnants of the planet's ancient magnetic storms. His mission was simple in theory: explore the recently discovered alien structure buried beneath the scarred surface. In reality, it was anything but simple. The structure had appeared on scans like a void carved into reality itself. Angular, crystalline, and impossibly large, it pulsed faintly with a blue luminescence that seemed alive. Varn's first step toward it triggered a resonance that made his chest vibrate. His crew whispered through the comms, nervous and agitated, but he pressed forward. Something about the structure called him. Not just a mission, not just curiosity, but a deep, primal certainty that he was meant to see what lay inside. The entrance was a jagged seam in the black crystal, like the mouth of some colossal, sleeping beast. The closer he moved, the more he sensed an awareness beyond comprehension. The walls weren't walls. They were alive, thinly veiling the machinery of thought. When he crossed the threshold, his helmet sensors went haywire. Magnetic readings spiked. The ship's AI began muttering warnings in fragmented tones. Varn ignored them. Inside, the air shimmered with particles that shouldn't exist. Time seemed to dilate. Seconds stretched like elastic, and the sound of his own heartbeat echoed unnaturally. Then he saw her. She hovered in the center of the chamber, a being so unlike any life he had ever encountered that for a fraction of a second his mind faltered. Her form was humanoid, yes, but only barely. Her skin shifted with an opalescent glow, flickering like liquid metal. Her eyes, however, her eyes were solid, impossibly deep, and entirely alien. They held no pupil or iris, only concentric rings of silver and violet, moving as though alive, pulling thoughts from him he hadn't realized were exposed. She studied him silently. The hum of the structure grew louder as though resonating with her presence. "Why do you not fear?" Her voice was a melody that vibrated directly in his mind, bypassing his ears. Varn swallowed, forced words past the shock, and said, "Because I've seen what waits on the edge of stars. Nothing you are or do frightens me." Her laughter, if it could be called that, shook the room. It wasn't cruel or mocking, but curious, analytical, and somehow tinged with amusement. Few mortals speak so boldly. Even fewer survive the curiosity that follows. She moved closer, gliding above the floor, as if gravity were a mere suggestion. Her presence warped the air, bending light and time around her. Curiosity, she mused, is rarely fearless. Yet you carry no hesitation. Varn felt his pulse steady despite the impossibility of her being. He noticed for the first time the patterns in her skin, fractal symbols that pulsed in harmony with the hum of the structure. They weren't merely decorative. They were language, mathematics, memory. Entire histories and memories seemed embedded in her form. He realized that to look at her was to risk having his mind read, perhaps rewritten by comprehension he could not yet grasp. And still, he did not turn away. "Why?" she asked again, closer this time, her voice like liquid crystal. "Why do you face the unknown without dread?" Elias felt a weight on his consciousness, a probing intent that felt like sunlight filtering through the canopy of thought. He could almost hear himself thinking aloud. Because fear is a prison. If I allow it to govern me, I've already surrendered. I survive because I refuse to be bound, even by terror. Her eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in fascination. For the first time, she seemed uncertain, as though his mind held an anomaly she could not categorize. "Anomaly," she whispered, the words stretching through the chamber and vibrating in his chest. Most would fall to instinct, panic, or obedience to the unspoken laws of survival. You defy it. He stepped closer, the alien air brushing against his suit, carrying a scent he could not name but recognize as profoundly old, perhaps older than the galaxy itself. The hum of the structure responded to his motion, harmonizing with the rhythm of his heartbeat. He realized that whatever this being was, she was both the key and the lock to the moon's enigma. "You see me," she said, voice now tinged with something almost human. Curiosity, longing, a hunger for understanding. "You see without fear. And yet you are small, fragile, mortal. Why do you persist?" "I persist," he said, "because survival isn't the goal. Understanding is. Connection is. If I shrink from the unknown, I shrink from life itself." Her gaze seemed to pierce through layers of reality, through the very fabric of his being. And then, just as suddenly as she had appeared, she stepped back, her form folding upon itself like a living tessellation, retreating into the crystalline shadows. Few humans speak thus. Fewer still act on it. Perhaps you are worth the risk. Elias swallowed hard, unsure whether the invitation was a blessing or a death sentence. "The risk is mine to take," he said, though a thread of unease twisted in his gut. She extended a hand. No, not a hand. A shifting projection of energy, fractals flowing outward, forming an appendage that invited or demanded trust. "Then follow," she whispered, and the air bent as though reality itself were yielding to her will. They moved deeper into the structure. With every step, the walls rippled and refracted light, revealing glimpses of alien civilizations long extinct, memories encoded into crystalline latticework. He saw worlds burning and thriving, beings of every conceivable form, and an understanding of cosmic time that dwarfed human history into insignificance. "How much of this of you is real?" Varn asked. "All," she replied. "And none. Reality is malleable. Perception shapes truth. I am both guardian and witness, creator and destroyer. You see only what your mind can grasp." He nodded, though he understood very little. Yet, paradoxically, that didn't matter. He felt a strange kinship with her, a bridge across the incomprehensible expanse of thought that separated human from alien. They arrived in a chamber unlike any he had yet seen. The floor was a prism, the ceiling a sky that mirrored galaxies in motion. In the center floated a sphere of pure energy, glowing with pulses that resonated with the structure's hum. She hovered before it. "This is the heart," she said. "It sustains this place, and through it, I sustain memory, knowledge, life. Few are permitted to witness it. Fewer survive it." "Why me?" he asked. "Because you do not fear." Her voice carried weight, like an anchor in the vastness. "Fear corrupts understanding. Fear bends truth. You are rare." He looked into her eyes again, those impossible, swirling, alien eyes, and realized that she was searching for something in him. Perhaps a reflection of herself, perhaps a spark of humanity she had never known. "And if I fail?" he asked. Her form shimmered, fractals folding inward and outward like the pulse of a living star. "Then you die," she said simply, as all mortals do when they tread too far into the infinite. But you will not fail, not yet. Elias felt a chill. Death here was not a weapon, not a threat. It was a natural consequence of curiosity. Yet he could not retreat, could not turn back. The fear that should have seized him was absent, replaced with a strange clarity. Then show me, he said. Show me what you see. Let me understand. She paused, and for the first time seemed hesitant. Understanding is a burden, human. To see as I see is to know all joy and all suffering, to witness the rise and fall of civilizations as a single heartbeat. Many cannot bear it. Many break. Then I will bear it, he said, his voice steady despite the enormity of the moment. The alien extended her fractal hand toward him, and a tendril of light connected to his suit. Instantly, his mind was flooded with visions. Stars being born and dying, planets spinning into ruin, the tapestry of life across countless galaxies. The sheer scale was dizzying, terrifying, sublime. Yet through it all, he remained grounded, anchored by his own determination to understand rather than to judge. Hours, or was it centuries, passed in a single breath. He learned of civilizations that had transcended matter, of beings who communicated through thought alone, of wars that spanned light years and lasted eons. And through it all, the alien woman was his guide, patient, curious, watching him as one might watch a rare flower bloom in impossible conditions. When the torrent of knowledge subsided, he found himself back on the moon's blackened surface, her figure standing before him, radiating calm, unyielding power. Few survive this encounter, she said. Fewer still emerge unchanged. You have endured, you have seen, and you have not feared. Varn nodded, the enormity of what he had witnessed settling over him. I have questions, he said, knowing that the answers might destroy his mind, but also knowing he could not stop. Questions are the bridge between mortality and understanding, she said. But answers are mine to give. Or not. Fear is the chain. You have none. That is why you endure. And then she was gone. The structure, once alive with energy and consciousness, became inert, a crystal tomb on a lifeless moon. Varn felt his heartbeat fading. But inside him, something had changed forever. He carried the knowledge, the weight of countless civilizations, and the realization that fear was optional, but understanding was unavoidable. When he returned to the ship, his crew stared at him, wide-eyed and trembling. What happened? One of them asked. He looked at them, and for the first time felt the true loneliness of knowing without fear. Something beyond comprehension, he said. Something alive. Something that asked why I feared nothing, and made me see why fear is a choice. The stars stretched endlessly outside the viewport, but Elias Varn no longer felt small. He had stared into the alien eyes of eternity and walked away intact. Fear had no claim on him. But the universe was infinite, and understanding would be his lifelong burden. And somewhere across the vast reaches of space, she waited, watching, curious, perhaps hoping that someone else, someday, would walk the same path without trembling.